My sister said I cannot handle money, so the judge read one transfer out loud. My name is Maya Keller. I am 33 years old. On a Thursday at 9:12 in the morning, I sat in a probate courtroom in Maricopa County, while my older sister Ava tried to put me under a conservatorship. She told a judge and 18 people in that room that I was unstable with money. She said it the way you would say someone has a disease, like it was settled science. Her exact words, "She cannot handle money, I can." Then the judge ordered the filed inventory read aloud. And when the clerk got to one line, a $47,500 transfer, flagged, sent directly to Ava, the whole room shifted. Before I tell you what happened next, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story resonates with you. Drop a comment and tell me where you are watching from and what time it is there. Now, let me take you back to the first time Ava decided my life was hers to manage. My mother got sick when I was 10. Ovarian cancer. Stage 2. They caught it early enough that she survived, but the treatment took almost 2 years, and during those 2 years, our household rearranged itself around one central fact: Mom couldn't do everything anymore. Ava was 15. She stepped into the gap the way some teenagers step into a role in a school play, completely, dramatically. And with an audience in mind, she started cooking. She managed the grocery list. She made sure our dad remembered to sign permission slips. She picked up prescriptions and organized the Tupperware drawer, and told everyone exactly what she was doing at every turn. And at first, everyone was grateful. The neighbors called her such a little adult. Our Aunt Denise told the whole family that Ava was holding the Kellers together. Our father started deferring to her on small decisions: what to have for dinner, when to schedule appointments, and Ava accepted that authority the way a plant accepts sunlight. She leaned into it completely, but somewhere along the way, being helpful became being in charge. And being in charge meant deciding who was capable and who wasn't. I was 10. I lost a library book once. I forgot to turn in a homework folder. I left my lunch on the kitchen counter 3 days in a row. Normal things, kid things. But Ava turned those moments into a narrative. Maya loses things. Maya forgets. Maya cannot be trusted. She said it at dinner. She said it to our cousins at Thanksgiving. She said it to our father while I was standing right there, holding my backpack by the straps, trying to prove I hadn't lost anything at all. She kept a locked metal cash box on the top shelf of her closet. She called it the emergency fund. It had maybe $40 in it, coins and crumpled bills she had saved from chores. But the lock was the point. I wasn't allowed to touch it. I wasn't allowed to know the combination. I asked once, and she looked at me with genuine pity. "You would lose it," she said. I was 10 years old. That was the first time I understood that Ava saw me not as a younger sister, but as a problem she had been assigned to manage. By the time I was 17, the narrative was cemented. Ava was the responsible one. I was the risk. Everyone in our family had absorbed it like a background hum they had stopped noticing. My first real paycheck came from a summer job at a veterinary clinic, minimum wage, 30 hours a week, cleaning kennels and answering phones. I earned $620 and deposited it into a savings jar I kept under my bed. I was saving for a laptop. I had been pricing refurbished ThinkPads online for weeks, comparing specs in a notebook I kept in my desk drawer. The jar disappeared on a Tuesday. I tore my room apart. I checked under the bed, behind the bookshelf. Inside the closet, I asked my dad. He shrugged. I asked Ava. She smiled. Not a warm smile, a satisfied one. I moved it somewhere safe. "You would have blown it on something stupid." I told her I wanted it back. She said fine. And 3 days later she returned the money with a handwritten receipt that didn't match. The receipt said $600 even. I had counted $620. I know I had because I had counted it the night before, sitting cross-legged on my floor, stacking the bills by denomination. When I pointed out the discrepancy, Ava sighed like I was exhausting her. "You miscounted, Maya. You always miscount." She said it loud enough for Dad to hear. He didn't look up from the television. I didn't miscount, but I let it go, because fighting Ava was like arguing with someone who had already written the verdict before the trial began. When I was 26, everything shifted again. Our dad, Richard, started showing signs of cognitive decline. Small things at first: he would forget where he parked at Costco. Or he had called me by my mother's name. Then bigger things. He left the stove on overnight. He paid the same electric bill 3 times in 1 month. He called me at 11 p.m. asking where Mom was, even though Mom had moved to Flagstaff after the divorce 8 years prior. Ava moved fast. Faster than the doctors. She volunteered to help with the bills. She became the primary contact at his bank. She set up online access to his accounts, checking, savings, brokerage, and configured all the notifications to go to her email. She changed the passwords on his medical portals. She told the doctor's office, the pharmacy, and the insurance company that all communication should go through her. She did it all in a single week. When I tried to log into Dad's bank app to check a suspicious charge, a $340 payment to a company, I didn't recognize the screen. Said my device had been removed after a security update. I called the bank. They told me the primary account holder, or the authorized user, had requested the change. I called Ava. "It is easier if one person manages everything," she said. "Too many cooks." That was her favorite phrase, too many cooks. As if I were a stranger wandering into someone else's kitchen, and not a daughter who had been helping her father pay his water bill for the past year. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed and thought about every locked box, every missing jar, every changed password. I thought about the narrative Ava had been building since I was 10 years old, and I understood something I had been circling for 23 years. Ava didn't want to help. She wanted control. She always had. The helping was just the costume. The control wore in public. I didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, I did something quiet. Something Ava never would have expected from the sister she had trained everyone to underestimate. Every automated message from every institution went into a folder I labeled, "just in case." I didn't know what I had need it for, but I knew I had need it. Here is what you need to understand about my father's finances. Richard Keller was not wealthy. He was a retired HVAC technician who had worked for the same company in Tempe for 31 years. He drove a 2014 Toyota Camry. He ate at the same diner every Sunday, a place called Rosie's on Mill Avenue, where they knew his order by heart. Scrambled eggs, rye toast, black coffee. But he was careful. He had saved consistently for 3 decades. He owned his house outright, a 3-bedroom ranch, off Rural Road, worth about $340,000. He had a retirement account with a balance just under $90,000. A small brokerage account he had used for conservative index funds, and a $200,000 term life insurance policy that named Ava and me as equal beneficiaries. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to fight over if someone was inclined to fight. And Ava was inclined. Over the previous 2 years, while Ava was busy being the one who handles things, I had been quietly covering the gaps she either didn't see or chose to ignore. Dad forgot to pay his water bill. I paid it. His AC unit broke in July, in Phoenix, where July means 115 degrees, and no air conditioning means a hospital visit. I covered the $2,400 repair. He needed a new set of tires for the Camry. He needed a specialist copay his insurance didn't cover. He needed groceries delivered twice a week after he stopped driving. I paid for the meal delivery service. I paid for the locksmith when he locked himself out. I paid for the plumber when the kitchen sink backed up. I kept a spreadsheet. Not because I planned to use it as a weapon, but because I am a risk analyst. That is what I do at my desk 9 hours a day. I track numbers. I build models. I identify patterns. So I track the numbers here: 2 dates, amounts, categories, confirmation numbers. Over 26 months, I had spent $18,900 of my own money, keeping my father's life running. I had the bank statements. I had the receipts. I had everything organized in a Google Sheet with tabs for each month. Ava didn't know about the spreadsheet. She didn't know about the folder of alerts and screenshots I had been building either. And she certainly didn't know that 3 weeks before the hearing, I had gotten an email from Dad's bank, an automated fraud alert. A transaction of $47,500 had been flagged on his brokerage account. The recipient was listed as Ava M. Keller. I sat at my kitchen table and read that email 4 times. Then I called the bank's fraud department. They confirmed the investigation was open. They gave me a case reference number. I wrote it on a post-it note and stuck it to my bathroom mirror, so I would see it every morning and remember what this was actually about. The worst part wasn't the money. It was the architecture of it. Ava was filing a conservatorship petition, asking a judge to declare me financially incompetent, at the same time that she was sitting on a flag transfer made out to herself. She wasn't protecting Dad. She was clearing the board, removing me so there would be no one left to ask questions. I could have fought Ava in private for years. We could have had quiet arguments at kitchen tables, whispered battles at holidays, the slow grinding warfare that families specialize in. But she dragged it into court. She made it public. She put my name on a legal filing and called me incapable in a room full of strangers. So I brought proof that speaks louder than family lies. And Ava had no idea the bank had already put a fraud hold on the exact account she was trying to protect. Maricopa County Probate Court sits in a building that smells like floor polish and old paper. The hallway is beige. The air conditioning is set to a temperature that makes you feel like you are being preserved. I walked through the metal detectors at 8:45 a.m. on a Thursday morning, wearing a navy blazer I had ironed the night before, carrying a manila folder I had organized with color-coded tabs: blue for bank records, green for personal expenses, red for the fraud documentation. Ava was already there. She wore a charcoal dress and low heels. Her hair was blown out. She had a leather binder tucked under her arm, the kind you buy at Staples when you want to look like you have a plan. She was standing near the courtroom doors, talking in a low voice to a woman. I didn't recognize someone she would brought as a character witness. A friend from her Pilates studio named Janice. I had later learned. There were 18 people in that courtroom. A clerk behind a computer, a bailiff by the door, a court reporter with her steno machine, Ava's friend Janice, clutching her purse, our cousin Derek, who had driven up from Tucson because Ava told him something important was happening, and that the family needed to show up, a handful of other petitioners waiting for their own cases, people with their own folders, their own worries, their own family stories unfolding behind closed doors, and me, sitting on the left side, second row, with my folder on my lap, and my hands folded over it. Ava's attorney went first. He was a slim man, in a gray suit, named Mitchell. Something I didn't catch the last name and didn't care to. He spoke in a measured, almost gentle tone, the kind of voice you would use to explain to a child why they cannot have dessert before dinner. He laid out Ava's case with clinical precision. Our father was declining. His finances needed oversight. And Maya Keller, he said my full name, like he was reading it from a police report, was not a suitable candidate for any fiduciary role. He used the word impulsive. He used the word erratic. He said I had a pattern of financial instability, which was a phrase I had never heard anyone use about me in my entire life. Because it wasn't true. He cited no evidence. He offered no documentation. He just said it, in a courtroom, as if saying it made it real. Then Ava took the stand. She placed her hand on her chest right over her heart, like she was about to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. And she spoke softly. She told the judge she was worried. She said she had tried to help Maya see reason, but that I was resistant to guidance. She said Dad deserved someone steady managing his affairs. She dabbed her eyes with a tissue, even though they were dry. The Pilates friend nodded. Derek stared at his shoes. Then Ava looked directly at the judge and said it. The sentence she would probably rehearsed in her bathroom mirror. She cannot handle money. I can. 18 people heard it. The clerk looked up from his keyboard. The court reporter's fingers paused for half a beat. Derek shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Janice nodded like she was watching a TED Talk about something she already agreed with. Then Ava added, in a voice that dripped with practiced sadness, assign everything to me so I can manage it properly. The room was quiet. I could hear the air conditioning cycling through the vents. I could hear someone's phone vibrating 3 rows behind me. I could hear my own heartbeat, steady and even, the way it gets when I am running data models at work, and the numbers start to tell a story. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't shake my head. I didn't roll my eyes or scoff, or do any of the things Ava probably expected me to do, the things that would have made me look exactly the way she had described me. impulsive, erratic, emotional. When it was my turn, I stood up slowly, smoothed my blazer, and looked at the judge. "Your Honor, may the filed inventory be read into the record?" Ava's attorney stood up like he had been stung. "That is unnecessary. We can handle the specifics privately." I didn't look at him. I kept my eyes on the judge. "If it is clean," I said, "it will sound clean." The judge, a woman in her 50s with reading glasses pushed up on her forehead, paused. She looked at Ava. She looked at me. Then she nodded to the clerk. The clerk cleared his throat, adjusted his screen, and began reading. And across the aisle, Ava's smile didn't quite reach her eyes anymore. "I should tell you about Gordon Reese." Gordon was an estate attorney our father had hired 4 years earlier, back when Dad still had the clarity to plan ahead. He was a quiet man in his 60s with wire-rimmed glasses, a voice like gravel, and an office in a strip mall on Camelback Road that looked nothing like a law firm from the outside. The kind of attorney who never raised his voice because he never needed to. Dad hired Gordon after a lunch where Ava had casually suggested she be added to all his accounts for convenience. Dad smiled and nodded the way he always did when Ava talked agreeably, without resistance, and then called Gordon the next morning. Gordon drew up an advance designation, a legal document that names who should serve as conservator or guardian if the need ever arises. It is not a power of attorney. It is a preference, filed with the court, that carries significant weight in any guardianship proceeding. Dad named me. And in the same document, he explicitly excluded Ava. The language was specific and unambiguous. Due to potential conflicts of interest, I do not wish Ava M. Keller to serve in any fiduciary capacity over my estate or person. I didn't know this until Gordon called me 11 days before the hearing. His voice was calm and unhurried. "Your father planned for this," he said. "He told me something once that I wrote down. He said, if anyone tries to help with control, we use paper, never emotion. I think it is time we use the paper." Ava didn't know about the designation. She didn't know about Gordon. She didn't know that the bank's fraud department had device logs showing exactly which phone had initiated the $47,500 transfer, complete with the model number, the IP address, and the timestamp. She didn't know that the two-factor authentication codes for Dad's brokerage account had been sent to her own phone number at 2:17 a.m. on a night when Dad was asleep at his assisted living facility in Mesa. And she certainly didn't know that her own petition, the one she had filed to take control of everything, contained sworn statements that, read against the bank's records, weren't just wrong, they were contradictions. And contradictions in a courtroom become evidence. At the time, I didn't fully realize it, but Ava had already built the case that would bury her. She just hadn't noticed yet. The night after the first hearing session, I sat at my kitchen table at midnight. Laptop open, a cup of chamomile tea that had gone cold an hour ago. My folder was spread across the table like a crime scene, documents fanned out. Post-it notes stuck to the edges. A yellow legal pad covered in my handwriting. I was reading Ava's petition for the 4th time, cross-referencing every claim against the bank records I had been collecting for months. I had a choice. I could try to prove I was good with money, show my credit score, my savings account, my investment portfolio, my clean financial history, play defense, let Ava set the terms and spend the hearing convincing a judge that I wasn't the person she described. Or I could prove that Ava's claim was false, and that her actions were worse than irresponsible, they were suspicious. I chose the second option, because defense keeps you on your heels, and I was done standing on my heels. Here is what I had, organized in red tabs. A bank statement showing a $47,500 transfer from Dad's brokerage account to Ava's personal checking account, dated the 14th of October. One day after Dad's last cognitive evaluation at the neurologist's office in Scottsdale. An automated email from the bank confirming the transaction had been flagged and a fraud investigation initiated. Case number, FR 2024. 08817. A device log printout from the bank's security team showing that the transfer was initiated from an iPhone 14 Pro Avenue A's phone model at an IP address registered to her apartment complex in Scottsdale. Two-factor authentication text logs showing that verification codes for Dad's brokerage account were sent to Ava's phone number at 2:17 a.m. and 2:19 a.m. on a Tuesday in October, a time when Dad was documented as sleeping at Sunrise Assisted Living in Mesa, and I was pulling a late shift running quarter-end reports at the office. I also had Gordon's document, the advance designation filed 4 years ago, naming me excluding Ava, notarized, witnessed, and never contested. And I had one more thing, a voicemail. 3 weeks before filing the petition, Ava had called Gordon's office. She didn't know Gordon was our father's attorney. She thought she was calling a general estate planning firm she had found online. She left a message asking about expediting a guardianship filing, and said, I will paraphrase here, because the transcript would be read in court, that she needed the filing done before Maya got involved, and that the accounts needed to be secured quickly. Gordon played that voicemail for me in his office on a Wednesday afternoon. I sat in a leather chair across from his desk, next to a potted fern that needed watering, and listened to my sister's voice, calm, businesslike, confident, explaining that she needed to move fast before I could stop her. I didn't cry. I wanted to, but I didn't. I just sat there and let the anger settle into something quieter and more useful. Determination. We built a strategy. Gordon would file a formal objection to Ava's petition. He would request the inventory be read aloud at the next hearing, every line, every account, every transaction. He would submit the bank's fraud documentation and the device logs as exhibits. He would present the advance designation, and if the moment called for it, he would introduce the voicemail transcript. The designation alone undercuts her petition on the spot, Gordon told me. Everything else is just the wall falling down around it. I asked about the risks. He was honest. Ava would tell the family I was attacking her during Dad's decline. She had cast herself as the devoted daughter being punished for caring too much. She would make herself the victim. Some people would believe her. I sat with that for a while. I stared at the cold tea and thought about what I actually wanted. I didn't want to destroy Ava. I didn't want revenge. I wanted her hands off my life. I wanted her hands off Dad's accounts. And I wanted to stop being the person everyone assumed was the problem simply because Ava said so. Loudly and often, for 23 years. If she wants power, I told Gordon, she can earn it with truth. He looked at me over his wire-rimmed glasses and nodded once. 2 weeks later, we walked back into that courtroom. Same courthouse, same beige hallway, same metal detectors, same cold air cycling through the vents, like the building was trying to preserve everyone inside it. But this time, I walked in carrying a different folder, thicker, tabbed in red and blue, organized the way I organize quarterly risk reports at work. Every exhibit numbered, every document highlighted, every page in order. Ava arrived looking confident. She wore a cream blazer with pearl earrings and carried the same Staples binder, which I noticed didn't look any fuller than the last time. She walked in the way she always walked into rooms, like she had already won and was just waiting for everyone else to acknowledge it. Derek was back, sitting in the second row, looking less certain than before. Janice was back too, though she had chosen a seat further from Ava this time. 18 people again in the courtroom, plus one addition that Ava didn't know about. A sealed affidavit from the bank's fraud department, submitted to the court that morning by Gordon's paralegal. Ava sat down and whispered something to her attorney. She glanced at me once, quickly, the way you would glance at a parking meter. You were sure hadn't expired yet. The judge called the case. The clerk resumed the inventory where he had left off. Account ending 8,837. Checking balance $4,210. Account ending 6,102. Savings balance $11,344. Account ending 4,421. Brokerage. And then the clerk paused. He adjusted his glasses, scrolled down on his screen, and read the next line in the same flat procedural voice he had used for everything else, like he was reading a grocery list. Transfer October 14th. Amount $47,500. Recipient Ava M. Keller. Status flagged. Fraud investigation initiated. The room didn't gasp. It was quieter than that. It was the sound of 18 people recalibrating at the same time. A low shift, like wind through a crack in a window. Derek leaned forward. Janice's hand froze on her purse strap. The court reporter kept typing, but her eyebrows rose a fraction. Ava let out a sound, half laugh, half cough. The noise people make when they have been caught but haven't decided on their excuse yet. That is a misunderstanding, she said, looking at her attorney. Dad authorized that transfer. The judge raised a hand. Miss Keller, you will have an opportunity to respond through your counsel. Gordon stood. He spoke the way he always spoke, like a man reading the weather forecast. No drama, no flourishes, no raised voice, just the facts, delivered in order, like bricks being laid. Your Honor, I would like to submit Exhibit B. This is documentation from the issuing bank's fraud department, confirming that the transfer in question was initiated from a device registered to the petitioner, Ava M. Keller. The device log shows an iPhone 14 Pro, IP address traced to a residential address in Scottsdale, Arizona. The two-factor authentication codes required to authorize the transfer were sent to Miss Ava Keller's personal phone number at 20:17 and 2:19 a.m. on October 14. Mr. Richard Keller was documented by facility staff as being asleep at Sunrise Assisted Living in Mesa at that time. Ava's attorney rose. Your Honor, my client can explain. I am not finished, Gordon said. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He submitted the advance designation. He read the relevant clause aloud, slowly, so every word landed. Due to potential conflicts of interest, I do not wish Ava M. Keller to serve in any fiduciary capacity over my estate or person. This document was executed 4 years ago, Gordon continued. Notarized. Witnessed by 2 licensed attorneys. During a period when Mr. Keller's physician confirmed full cognitive capacity, it was filed with this court and has never been challenged or amended. Derek put his head in his hands. Janice looked at the floor. Ava's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, anger, something that looked like rapid calculation, before settling on a tight, thin-lipped smile. That document is outdated, Ava said, her voice sharp. Dad wasn't in his right mind when he was. Gordon said simply. The physician's letter is attached as Exhibit D. Then Gordon submitted the voicemail transcript. He didn't play the audio. The transcript was sufficient for the record. The clerk read Ava's own words into the courtroom, that she needed the filing done before Maya got involved, and that the accounts needed to be secured quickly. I watched Ava's hands. They were shaking, not dramatically, not in a way that most people would notice. But I noticed. I had been watching those hands my whole life. I had watched them lock a metal cash box when I was 10. I had watched them take my savings jar when I was 17. I had watched them change passwords and gate access, and sign forms and file petitions, designed to erase me from my own father's life. Now those hands were trembling on the surface of a Staples binder that had nothing useful inside it. She is twisting this, Ava said, her voice rising for the first time, breaking the composed performance she had been running since the first hearing. Dad wanted me to handle it. He trusted me. Gordon didn't blink. Then she wouldn't be receiving a flagged transfer. I looked at the judge. Your Honor, may I ask the clerk to read line 3 of Miss Keller's petition? The judge nodded. The clerk found it, and he read it, the line where Ava had sworn, under penalty of perjury, that she had no financial interest in the estate, and had never received funds from any of the subject's accounts. $47,500 said otherwise. The murmurs spread through the room like a slow wave. Derek pressed his palms against his face. Janice was staring at the wall. Even Ava's attorney looked like he wanted to be somewhere else. I looked at Ava. She was staring at me with an expression I had never seen on her face before. It wasn't anger, it wasn't contempt. It was recognition, the realization that I was not the person she had told everyone I was. You called me irresponsible, I said, my voice even. While you were moving money to yourself, the courtroom was silent. Not uncomfortable silence, factual silence. The silence that follows when the truth has been said, and there is nothing left to argue against. Then I said, the last thing I planned to say in that courtroom. Concern doesn't require passwords, transfers, or lies under oath. The judge didn't rule on everything that day. Courts don't move like stories, they move like institutions, with processes and timelines and forms that need signatures. But she saw enough. And what she did that afternoon changed the trajectory of everything that followed. Ava's petition for conservatorship was denied. The judge cited three things in her oral ruling: the advance designation, the flagged transfer, and what she called substantial credibility concerns regarding the petitioner's financial disclosures. She said that last part, while looking directly at Ava, and Ava looked down at the table, like she was studying the wood grain. The judge ordered Ava immediately removed from all access to Dad's financial accounts, medical portals, and institutional contacts. She appointed a temporary neutral fiduciary, a court-approved professional named Sandra Huang, to oversee Dad's estate, while the bank's investigation continued. She directed that the fraud department's findings be formally submitted to the court as part of the case record, and she noted, clearly, and for the record, that the matter might warrant referral to the county attorney's office for further review. I sat in my chair and absorbed all of it. I didn't smile, I didn't celebrate. I just listened, and I wrote down every word I could on my yellow legal pad. That afternoon, I signed the updated account protections in Gordon's office. New passwords across every institution, new security keys, a formal notification letter sent to Dad's bank, his brokerage, his insurance company, and his medical providers, informing them that Ava M. Keller was no longer authorized to access, modify, or inquire about any account. By 5 o'clock that evening, she couldn't log into a single portal. In the hallway outside the courtroom, before any of the paperwork was done, Ava caught me by the elbow. Her mascara was slightly smudged. Her Staples binder was clutched against her chest like a shield. Her pearl earrings caught the fluorescent hallway light. "You embarrassed me," she said. Her voice was low and tight, the voice she used when she wanted me to feel guilty for something she had caused. I looked at her. Really looked at her. Not with anger, not with triumph, just with clarity. "You embarrassed yourself," I said. "In the part where you took $47,500. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. For the first time in 33 years, Ava Keller had no narrative ready. I pulled my arm free gently and walked toward the elevator. "This isn't revenge," I said without turning around. "It is containment." Gordon had already drafted the terms for going forward. Ava would communicate with me only through legal counsel. No more access to Dad's portals, accounts, devices, or facility records. No more showing up at Sunrise Assisted Living and signing things on his behalf. No more managing, no more helping. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside and pressed the lobby button. Before the doors closed, I said something I had been rehearsing in my head for 23 years quietly, not for an audience. Just for me. "You don't get custody of my life, because you are louder." Within a week, the bank completed its preliminary review. The $47,500 was frozen, not recovered yet, but frozen, which meant Ava couldn't move it further. A formal recovery process was initiated, though Gordon warned me it could take months and might not return the full amount. The fraud department also identified 2 additional transactions that had slipped under the radar: a $3,200 payment labeled medical expense reimbursement, and an $1,800 transfer marked home maintenance. Neither had supporting documentation, no receipts, no invoices, no correspondence from Dad authorizing them. They were flagged and added to the investigation. The total Ava had moved from Dad's accounts, as far as the bank could determine at that point, was $52,500. That is not a rounding error. That is not a misunderstanding. That is a pattern. Ava's narrative flipped overnight. The woman who had walked into court performing selfless devotion now painted herself as a victim of family betrayal. She called our Aunt Denise that same weekend and told her I had ambushed her in court. She told Derek I was cold and greedy and brainwashed by some ambulance-chasing lawyer. She told anyone who would listen that I was punishing her for trying to help Dad, that I was using legal technicalities to destroy the family. She posted a vague message on Facebook that week, one of those posts designed to generate sympathy without providing context. Something about family betrayal and people who choose money over love and knowing who your real family is. It got 43 sympathetic comments and 12 heart reactions, all from people who had absolutely no idea what had happened in that courtroom. Some of the family believed her. They always had before. Why would this be different? Our Uncle Ray called me 3 days after the hearing. She meant well, Maya, he said. She was just trying to help your dad. You know how she is. I asked Uncle Ray if helping usually involved a $47,000 transfer to your own checking account. At 2 in the morning. He was quiet for a long time. I didn't know about that part. He finally said, "Well, now you do," I told him. But not everyone sided with Ava, and that surprised me more than anything. Aunt Denise called me the following week. Her voice was careful, measured the way people sound when they are about to say something they have been thinking about for a long time. "I owe you an apology," she said. I believed her. For years, Maya, I believed her. She told me that Ava had been telling the extended family for months that I was falling apart, that I had been spending recklessly, that I was too emotional to handle anything involving Dad's care, that I had missed multiple bill payments and couldn't keep a budget. None of it was true. Not a single word. But Ava said it with such conviction, such practiced sadness, that people absorbed it without question. "She sounded like she was worried about you," Denise said. "But she was just clearing the path." Derek texted me from Tucson. Short, direct. I sat in that courtroom and watched her lie. "I am sorry I didn't see it sooner." I told him I understood. I told him that some patterns are invisible from the outside. You have to read the fine print to see them. 3 months later, the court formalized the oversight arrangement. Sandra Huang, the neutral fiduciary, remained in place and would manage Dad's accounts and finances going forward. I was designated as the oversight contact, per Dalton D's advance directive. Not to control the money, but to review reports, flag concerns, and make sure no one else mismanaged it. It was the role Dad had chosen for me years ago, and I took it seriously. Sandra sent me monthly statements. I reviewed them on Sunday mornings with a cup of tea, the way normal people read the newspaper. Ava's consequences came quietly but steadily. Her attorney fees from the failed petition were substantial. Gordon estimated she had spent somewhere north of $15,000 on a case that was denied in a single hearing. The bank's fraud investigation resulted in a civil repayment agreement. Ava would return the $47,500, plus the $3,200, and the $1,800, on a structured monthly schedule. If she missed a payment, the matter would be escalated to the county attorney. Her reputation, the thing she had spent 30 years constructing, the image of the responsible eldest daughter, the family's anchor, the one who held it all together, started to fracture. People in the family stopped asking Ava to handle things. Our cousin Miriam, who had given Ava power of attorney over her own mother's accounts 2 years earlier, quietly revoked it. She didn't make an announcement. She just called her lawyer and had it done. Nobody said anything publicly. But the trust evaporated slowly at first, then all at once, the way trust always does when it is built on performance instead of truth. 6 months after the hearing, Ava sent me a message. Not a phone call, a text. 7 words. "Can we move past this? Dad needs unity." I read it twice. I set my phone down on the kitchen counter and stared out the window at the parking lot of my apartment complex, where a woman was loading groceries into a minivan and a kid was riding a scooter in slow circles. Then I typed back, "Unity without accountability is just silence." She didn't respond. What I didn't expect, what caught me off guard more than anything that happened in that courtroom, was what I found in Dad's papers. After the hearing, Gordon and I went through Dad's files more carefully. The ones he had kept in a fireproof box in his closet, the ones Ava hadn't gotten to. Inside, tucked behind the advance designation and his insurance documents, were notes, handwritten, on yellow legal pad paper, in Dad's careful block letters. The handwriting of a man who knew his mind was slipping and was trying to leave a record before it was too late. One note said, Ava moved money from checking to her account. $2,000, said it was for groceries. Didn't buy groceries, another said. Changed passwords again. Told me it was a security update. I don't think it was. And a third, the one that made me sit down on the floor of Gordon's office and press my hand over my mouth, said calling Gordon tomorrow. Need to protect Maya. She is the one who actually helps, he knew, before the diagnosis, before the decline, before any of us fully understood what was happening. Dad had seen it. And he had done the one thing he could do while he still had the clarity to do it. He put it on paper, because paper doesn't forget. Even when people do. 1 year later, I can tell you how things stand. Dad's care is stable. He is at Sunrise Assisted Living in Mesa, in a room with a window that faces east. The staff know his name and his routines. They know he likes his coffee black with 2 sugars and a blue mug. They know he watches Jeopardy every evening, and that he still remembers most of the answers, even on the hard days. Ava and I don't speak. Not because I am angry. I have worked through most of the anger in therapy, Wednesday evenings at 6, with a woman named Dr. Priya, who specializes in family systems. We don't speak because there is nothing left to say until Ava is ready to say the real thing. The thing that isn't an excuse or a deflection or a performance. And I don't think she is there yet. Maybe she will be someday. Maybe she will not. That is not my problem to solve. My credit is protected. My identity is secure. My name appears on the documents that matter, and for the first time in my adult life, nobody in my family introduces me as the irresponsible one, or the one who cannot handle things. I am just Maya. Risk analyst, spreadsheet enthusiast, daughter. That is enough.